Okay, so it's not every day you see global politics literally alter the course of a World Cup. Today, we're diving into an explainer, mapping out this wild, unprecedented geopolitical drama unfolding right now at the 2026 tournament. We're going to pull back the curtain on the billions of dollars and the massive international leverage at play here, really trying to understand exactly how the highest levels of sports governance actually operate. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the Balogun red card controversy and global politics on the pitch. All right, let's look at the facts of the story that completely shook up the knockout stages in July 2026. U.S. striker Folarin Balogun gets a red card and an automatic one-game ban during a match against Bosnia. Pretty standard stuff, right? But then, unexpectedly, that ban is suspended by FIFA. Why? Well, it followed a direct phone call from U.S. President Donald Trump to FIFA President Gianni Infantino asking for a review of the sending off. FIFA invoked Article 27 of its disciplinary code, placed the ban on a one-year probationary suspension, and completely cleared Balogun to play against Belgium. The Royal Belgian Football Association declared themselves absolutely astonished by this, stating it contradicted tournament regulations outright. And international managers like England's Thomas Tuchel publicly questioned the grounds of the reversal, asking, where does this kind of intervention start and end? So, what does this all mean? We have a situation where a direct call from a world leader has seemingly swayed the independent disciplinary process of a global sports tournament. I mean, how did FIFA reach a point where its structural integrity is so uniquely susceptible to top-down, unchecked power and geopolitical leverage? To truly understand the headlines of 2026, we kind of have to rewind the clock a bit. Section 2. One country, one vote, the structural flaw. Right at the heart of FIFA's governance is this one country, one vote system. Basically, whether you are a massive footballing nation with a multi-billion-dollar domestic league or a tiny island nation with almost no football infrastructure to speak of, your vote counts exactly the same in a FIFA presidential election. Sounds incredibly democratic on paper, right? But in practice, it became this massive structural vulnerability. It allowed ambitious executives to target smaller, less resourced associations who perhaps lacked rigid internal controls or financial resources. It essentially turned votes into a currency that could be traded for favors. To put that into perspective, consider this comparison. It really shows how that structural flaw was weaponized. You've got South America's CONMEBOL, home to heavyweights like Brazil and Argentina, with 8 World Cup wins combined at the time, and they only held 10 votes. Meanwhile, CONCACAF, which covers North and Central America and the Caribbean, held 35 votes. Because of the dense cluster of Caribbean island nations, an executive who could consolidate that Caribbean voting bloc suddenly held the keys to the kingdom. Figures like Jack Warner from Trinidad and Tobago and American Chuck Blazer realized pretty quickly that anyone running for FIFA presidency had to go through them. They held absolute leverage. Section 3. A culture of bribes. Decades of greed. Now, this unbalanced power dynamic didn't just pop up overnight. It bred a frankly mafia-like culture of kickbacks over decades. Tracing this chronologically, the modern era of FIFA corruption arguably started back in 1974, when Joan Havelange was elected amid rumors of distributing brown envelopes of cash to delegates. Under his reign, a marketing company called ISL was formed in 1982, effectively sole-sourcing FIFA's massively valuable marketing rights in exchange for secret kickbacks to executives. By the time Sepp Blatter took over in 1998, again amid allegations of vote buying, the culture was deeply entrenched. FIFA operated with this autocratic style where loyalty was bought and financial transparency was pretty much non-existent. And this whole culture really culminated in the infamous 2010 votes, awarding the 2018 World Cup to Russia and the 2022 World Cup to Qatar, votes completely surrounded by allegations of geopolitical dealing and outright bribery. To give you a concrete idea of how blatant this became, take a look at this number: $10 million. During the bidding for the 2010 World Cup, which South Africa ultimately won, a $10 million payment was authorized through FIFA. It was dressed up as a legacy fund for the African diaspora in the Caribbean. But in reality, investigators later found it was a straight-up bribe, funneled to Jack Warner and his associates to secure 3 crucial CONCACAF votes. Spoiler alert, no legacy project was ever built. And when you zoom out, the scale is just staggering. We're talking at least $150 million in bribes and kickbacks accepted by soccer executives over a 24-year period. Let that sink in. This was money meant to build fields, to grow the game globally. And instead, it was redirected right into the pockets of the people trusted to protect it. Journalist Ken Benzinger actually hit the nail on the head regarding this mindset. He pointed out that these officials operated with absolute impunity. They literally saw it as a family business they could make money out of, completely shielded from outside scrutiny. Section 4. The 2015 FIFA takedown, the forensic thriller. But, that shield of impunity eventually shattered. In the way the U.S. Department of Justice and the IRS finally pierced this untouchable syndicate, it reads like a true crime thriller. The takedown didn't start with some massive raid. It started with a single IRS agent, Steve Berryman, doing some meticulous forensic accounting. Berryman discovered that CONCACAF General Secretary Chuck Blazer hadn't paid his taxes in at least 17 years, which is just an incredibly audacious oversight. Facing decades in prison for wire fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion, Blazer flipped. He became a cooperating informant for the U.S. government. Using Blazer's internal documents, the DOJ then targeted Jack Warner's sons in the U.S. to apply pressure on Warner himself. This step-by-step unraveling of the financial web is what led directly to the explosive climax in 2015. The sheer scale of the DOJ's takedown was monumental. We're talking the biggest sports scandal in history here. 47 criminal counts were handed down, 14 initial defendants were charged, and ultimately over $201 million in forfeited funds were seized from corrupt officials. And the good news is, that money was returned to help finance legitimate football projects worldwide. The climax of all this, the visual that completely stunned the world, happened on May 27, 2015, when Swiss authorities conducted dawn raids at the luxurious hotel Bar O Lake in Zurich. They arrested 7 top FIFA officials, literally pulling them out from behind privacy sheets. But here is the truly wild part. Despite this massive international raid exposing decades of racketeering, Sepp Blatter was actually re-elected as FIFA president just 2 days later. He did eventually resign a few days after that as the pressure mounted, but his initial re-election, it proves just how deeply entrenched and normalized this culture of unchecked power had become among the voting delegates. Which brings us to the aftermath. In Section 5, the illusion of reform. Has anything changed? So, following the scandal, under new President Gianni Infantino, FIFA promised to clean house. In 2016, they rolled out these major statutory reform proposals. They pledged universal good governance principles. They replaced the old, highly corrupt 24-member executive committee with a broader 36-member FIFA council. And they established an independent audit and compliance committee to oversee the finances. On paper, it really looked like a total overhaul. However, insiders were incredibly skeptical right out of the gate. Take Alexandra Range, a former FIFA governance advisor who was actually brought in to establish these programs. Well, she left in frustration, calling the efforts a whitewash or a public relations stunt. She noted that the rigid hierarchy at the top largely remained, and there was basically zero appetite from leadership to genuinely limit their own power or institute real binding accountability. And that brings us to this stark contrast. Having policies on paper, like strict codes of conduct, independent audits, or impartial disciplinary rules like Article 27, means absolutely nothing without strict independent enforcement. In reality, sports organizations like FIFA rely super heavily on a complex web of internal self-regulation. And when the entity regulating the rules is the exact same entity benefiting from the power those rules create, the system remains highly susceptible to immense leverage, whether that's from internal voting blocs or external geopolitical superpowers. And that loops us directly back to where we started, the 2026 Balogun controversy. We've seen the history of FIFA now. It's an organization built on a flawed voting structure, sustained by decades of secret leverage, and remarkably resistant to genuine internal reform. So I leave you with this final thought to chew on. If a single phone call from a world leader can immediately sway a disciplinary ruling on the pitch of the World Cup today, has FIFA's historical culture of top-down, unchecked power actually been reformed? Or has it just evolved? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.